perfect mock drafts for the 2022 NFL Draft roll on here in the Sportsocracy. And the Minnesota Vikings. What do the Minnesota Vikings need to do in this offseason now that they got a new head coach? Front office looks pretty tight.
Well, I'm going to give two explanations here because this is the most common team I hear that is going to move down from their spot in the first round. So I'll give you a trade. It's not with the team that you keep hearing about. And I'll tell you what I would do if they stayed put. So this changes the first couple picks of this draft.
Okay, so they have the number 12 overall pick, and they'll trade with the New England Patriots, who will give up the 21st overall pick and the 54th pick.
In this scenario, it would be New England trading to get Jameson Williams, getting ahead of Houston, or Garrett Wilson, or whoever the case may be, going up to get the receiver they want. There has also been a lot of rumor that the Los Angeles Chargers, would have an interest in moving up from 17 to 12. Where that falls apart to me is I feel like the player that the Chargers would be going up to get, in theory, would be the player that Minnesota wants. Now, for this scenario with them trading down, they can't take the player they want, and I like it better this way. Let me tell you why. You could take Jordan Davis at 12. He's the interior of your defense. He's your Vita Vea for Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. Never going to be a great pass rusher, but he'll be a really good run stuffer. Allows you to what would be your 2-1 techniques in Harrison Phillips and Dalvin Tomlinson to just do what they do. If you do that, you're not going to get a lot in terms of pass rush. So for me, I don't love that because there's another player that I think I could get a little later that's the exact opposite of Jordan Davis. He's a much better pass rusher than he is run stuffer. And so for me, I want to trade down. New England calls. We'll give you a second-round pick to come down 9 spots. In. So that's exactly what I do. I trade down to 21, and at number 21, I take the highest graded center I have ever had in the decade plus I've been doing this.
Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa.
People will say, oh, he's too short. I've heard that about a lot of centers, and you know what? When they're this talented, it just doesn't really seem to matter. Minnesota has one of my favorite young offensive lines in this league. The one big dookie stain in the middle of it is Garrett Bradbury because he's just not been good for 2 years. So now you take him out, and he becomes an ancillary piece, an extra guard. If somebody gets hurt, whatever the case may be, I like him filling that role better because he can play center and guard. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And I have a guy in Tyler Linderbaum that can be the head of the snake, set my line calls, do all of the things, and be just a tremendous force in the run game. That fixes my offensive line. I already have 2 receivers that I really like. This is a really deep receiver draft, so I don't have to worry about that. Signed za'darius Smith. Already have Danielle Hunter. My edges are good. I'm looking at this team going, if something ever happened to Aaron Rodgers, we'd be the best team in this division by a shitload.
2 picks now in the second round after that trade with the New England Patriots, but the Minnesota Vikings have their own pick coming up at number 46 overall.
And I'm sure somebody that's really just dead in the wool on Jordan Davis is looking at the interior at that nose tackle spot in this new 3-4 under Kevin O'Connell going,
sweet mother of God, what is the holdup?
Well, here you go. Take Travis Jones, the nose tackle, out of UConn.
I think if the draft was on May 28th instead of April 28th, and I had more time to really think about this, I would end up having Travis Jones ranked higher than Jordan Davis. Mm-hmm. I think he's the best true nose in this draft.
Okay.
He's a great pass rusher. Now, granted, level of competition, yada, yada, yada. That's the one player, if I could get a prop on plus the number, him going in the first round, he would be the one I would want. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like so few people talk about it. And that's where I think it goes. That's where my rankings have it. As of the way the draft is unfurling now, there's an entire possibility that Minnesota could go Linderbaum at 21, get Travis Jones in the mid-40s, and I don't care if you drafted me at the end of this. I'd go, yep, you won.
Yeah.
2 dudes closest to the ball, and you got 2 of my 5 favorite guys in the draft that play in that realm. Yep, I'm fine with that. And you have all the ancillary pieces. In this scenario, you added another second-round pick that's going to add something that I think you're going to be just fine with. That's a home run start. Mm-hmm. That's a home run start. I know people are falling in love with Jordan Davis because of the athleticism, and I get it. The problem is that you cannot unsee the fact that he had that many high-level pass rushers around him and could never sniff a quarterback. He was irrelevant in the pass game. I feel like everybody's just forgetting that because he ran a 4.7 240. Mm-hmm. You do realize that he's not ever going to be asked to do that, right? Like, you get that. I get that he's a freak of nature. I also watched Alabama just completely take advantage of him. I can't unsee that shit. I look at him and go, you're a perfect fit for an LA. An LA that has rotational pieces that on pass downs I can deal with this, and I can put Sebastian Joseph Day in the middle, and now I've got a front three that allows Bosa and Khalil Mack to do what they do. I don't look at things that way in Minnesota because I don't see who you would put in the middle. I get how big Dalvin Tomlinson is. You do understand we tried this once, and it did not go particularly well. I think Tomlinson's a 3-4 end, and that's where he's going to play. And I look at Harrison Phillips the same way. You need the big guy, and I would rather have Travis Jones than Jordan Davis. And I'm saying that not like if you put a gun to my head and I had to take one of them at 12, I would rather have Travis Jones from Minnesota than I would Jordan Davis. It's just the layout of the team. Now, that being said, if I can do it this way, for me, then it's not even close.
Right.
This would easily be through 2 rounds my favorite team in the NFL of what they did in the draft.
Well, not so fast, my friend.
Because we ain't
done.
done yet.
We're not done with the second round. The pick at number 54 that came from the New England Patriots in that projected trade or mock trade, Roger McCreary, cornerback out of Auburn.
This is another player that if I'd had more time with the Rodney Dangerfield list, he'd have probably been on it. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many people that when I mock Roger McCreary, but he's got short. I don't give a fuck. He is a high-level player. I mean a high-level player. And this was in the SEC where he was getting thrown at. Teams did not avoid him, and he still held up. And to get him at this point, to me, would just be a home run. Looking at my board, the next 2 corners that fall in line behind him are Tariq Woolen, who, yes, is very long, but he's hyper raw, and Martin Emerson, who only fits in one kind of scheme. I feel like Roger McCreary could do damn near anything you asked him to. And in Minnesota, for just the way I'm looking at it, he would slide into the slot. I think he's a drastic improvement over what you have. You got Peterson on the outside, you got Dantzler on the outside, and now I'm looking at that secondary going, that secondary matches that pass rush now, and that defense is going to be really good, and it's going to terrorize Chicago and Detroit. Aaron Rodgers is still around, but not for long.
That's very true. In the third round, the Minnesota Vikings have number 77 overall, Isaiah Likely, tight end out of Coastal Carolina.
This is a guy that I know they like. And look, there's nobody that rides the Irv Smith hype train more aggressively than I do. But you also have to understand that injuries have been a problem. Mm-hmm. The high-level production hasn't been there even when he's been on the field. So, yes, I do think he's going to be your one, coming back off the injury from last year. But what happens if he gets hurt again? You have literally nothing. Tyler Conklin wound up with my Jets, so you need another piece. Plus, you need one that's a drastically better blocker, which, look, Isaiah Likely did not grade that well if you're looking at just PFF grade. Watch the tape. He's a much more willing, much more able blocker than people think. And at tight end in this draft, that makes him, I would say, a round more valuable than people think, because there's too many guys like Charlie Kohler or Greg Dulcich that couldn't block me. And so they're very limited in what they do. That can't be the complementary piece. To me, Likely could be a complementary to, if Irv Smith is healthy, set up the block, able and willing in the running game. And then if something were to happen to Irv Smith, I think he could slide in and be the one. There would be a downtick in production because he's not the kind of pass catcher and the kind of athlete that Irv Smith is, but he's a very good athlete.
Mm-hmm. And your buzz phrase bingo card, that's the first willing blocker drop that we've had.
And there'll be a hell of a lot more of them.
Yes, there will. There is no pick in the fourth round for the Minnesota Vikings. That belongs to Jeremy's New York Jets.
Thanks for that, for Chris Herndon. How'd that go for you?
So
you remember when I told you weren't going to like that? It's because I fell for him, too.
So while we have this break in the action, just want to remind you that the Sportsocracy always comes to you from the Ingles studio. Brought to you by Ingles Supermarkets. Low prices, love the savings. Let's go down to the 5th round at 156 overall. Minnesota Vikings have the Baltimore Ravens pick here, and Romeo Doubs, wide receiver out of Nevada.
The thing about these drafts is when players start appearing in multiple drafts, because these are done in a vacuum. So this is what would be the best for each individual team. So the fact that Romeo Doubs was taken by 2 other teams in 2 other videos is completely irrelevant. When I start seeing that, I start thinking, I'm higher on this guy than I have led myself to believe, and that usually means that the industry is too low on him. The problem with Romeo Doubs right now is that he does not run a high-level route tree. He was in a gimmicky-ass offense at Nevada, but hands away from the body, hands catcher, very talented with the ball in his hand. I mean, okay, you're going to have to teach him to run routes. Okay. Pretty good blocker, too, for a receiver, which is very rare in this class. Mm-hmm. Most of the high-level first or second-day receivers in this class can't block at all. Romeo Doubs does not fall into that. He would be a developmental piece. He would be the 4th receiver. I think ultimately he would probably be the replacement to Adam Thielen 2 years from now. Mm-hmm. But he would be a nice piece as your 4 behind Jefferson, Thielen, and Osborne. And if something happened to anyone, he can play damn near any spot. I don't love him as much in the slot as some other people do. I think he projects as an outside receiver. He kind of reminds me of a really poor man's Rashad Bateman. He's about a year behind what I thought Rashad Bateman was a year ago, and I loved Rashad Bateman and still do.
Yeah. Minnesota Vikings have 3 picks in the 6th round. The first one used to belong to the New York Jets. At 184 overall, DeMarco Jackson, linebacker from Appalachian State.
And this is a complimentary piece. Jordan Hicks is pretty good in the run game if you're just looking at how they grade. The problem is that Eric Kendricks is not. So, to me, this is the yin to the yang with Eric Kendricks. You'd get DeMarco Jackson play the first 2 downs, the run-stuffing interior 3-4 inside linebacker. To tie everything together, would be a contributor on special teams, some high-level tape from him. You're going to have to round him out in coverage. I do think he projects in time as a 3-down linebacker. I just think it's going to take time. Initially, he will be first and second down, obvious running downs, and I think he'll be very good at that. He will grade in the top 20 to 25 of run block win rate in probably the first year or 2 of him in the league. I just don't know where he's going to rate as a pass rusher. That was very inconsistent, and I don't know how good he'll be in coverage.
The first of a back-to-back in the 6th round comes at 191. Marquand McCall, nose tackle out of Kentucky.
Everybody in this world bees good at something, and Marquand McCall bees good at being huge. The only problem is that you're going to have to put a clause in his contract that if you balloon above 400 pounds, we get to hit you in the dick with a wiffle ball bat or recoup some money or whatever it is.
Little torture ticket.
There were a lot of weight issues with him at Kentucky. There's a kid that played guard. When he came in, he was, and I just want you to think about Darian Kennard, Dare Rosenthal, Luke Fortner, and Marquand McCall could have been 4 of the 5 starting linemen for Kentucky.
And they already called it the Big Blue Wall without him.
Yeah, the smallest one of those is Luke Fortner, who's 6'4", 320. All 3 of the others are 350 plus. I mean, this is a kid that doesn't even know what he doesn't know yet. Mm-hmm. He's only been playing nose tackle for a couple years. You got to be patient. Would be a rotational piece to start with. Probably would be a nice, to be honest with you, it would be a nice development with, and this is, 3D chess, but having Travis Jones to work with Marquand McCall in terms of being a pass rusher and Marquand McCall to work with Travis Jones in terms of just being a run-stuffing, block-eating defensive tackle from the interior. I could see those two feeding off each other and rounding each other's games off a little bit. Neither one's ever going to be as good at what the other does currently, but I could see a path where they're the rotational pieces as time goes on.
All right, Marquand McCall at 191, at 192 overall. Tyson Anderson, the safety from Toledo.
This is a kid that is – he's a and I don't have a word for this. He's like a Jeremy Special.
Okay.
He's really tall. He's really long, really good athlete. but I don't know what position he plays.
Okay.
If you look at him from he played safety at Toledo. I don't necessarily think he's going to play safety in the NFL. He kind of ranges as like a Hamson Nasruddin or a Divine Satan, man. The safety that we're going to convert to linebacker will be an elite special teamer, I think, off the jump, just because he's a ridiculous athlete and he's so good at what he's good at. But right now he's more athlete than he is football player. And there's no bad habits. There's nothing that you're going to have to break to teach him to be a linebacker or to let him be a safety. You're just going to have to let him grow. And one of the things that he pursues the ball drastically better than he does anything else. The negative tape on the reason that you can get him here is because there were some absolute lapses in coverage. But I'm going to say the same thing about him that I said about Divine Diablo last year. If you take away the over-the-top lapses at safety, this kid should have been a pick 2 rounds before this, because the good of that is really, really good. So if you're just going to cut that off, then it's a hell of a value pick.
In the 7th round, they have picked 251 overall. That is the final pick that they have in the draft. Came from the San Francisco 49ers, and they'll take Asazi Otomowo, edge rusher from Minnesota.
Tell the people how you found out how to say his name, just solely because it's really fucking funny to me.
Well, here, I will play it for you. They have a nice little handy tool on their website under his profile.
Asazi Otomowo.
Yep.
I'm not going to lie. You should all do that. Because there are some names that are real fucking hard to say.
Mm-hmm. Every school needs that on their website.
To me, he projects in the NFL as, first of all, he's going to be a project. Good pass rusher. Did a lot of things at Minnesota that were, there's a lot of good tape with him. The problem is he's a tweener, because I think he fits best as a 3-4 defensive end. The problem is he's not big enough to do that right now. So, I think he's a year away from being a year away, in that you're going to have to stash him on the practice squad the first year. Really work with him on strength and healthy eating habits and things like that to make sure you get the body right, because he's very tall. He's 6'6", and there are times that I think he's actually taller than that. So leverage becomes a problem. That's why I don't think he can come off the end, because he's not got that kind of burst. What he does is power and length and things like that. So I think coming from the interior, coming from that inside rush in spot, that's going to be his wheelhouse. You're just going to have to pull it out. He's been really popular in the draft process. A lot of teams have wanted to talk to him. I could see him being a 3-4 end. I could see him being a 4-3 defensive tackle. I cannot see a path where he's a 4-3 defensive end. So my fear is that a team's going to draft him for that, because there's a lot to like. The problem is he's going to be a complete one-trick pony with that, because it's, hey, I can go through you. Well, I'll let you go around me. Through you. That's all I got.
The perfect mock draft for the Minnesota Vikings starts off with a trade at 12. You trade back, get more draft capital, and you can only, you can hit more home runs that way.
This would be the third A++ ever. And they got one of those last year because they traded down and got the guy they were going to take at the pick that they traded down from.
Right.
So, I love this Minnesota roster. I think they're closer to Green Bay than other people do. If you like this Minnesota mock draft, if you don't like this, if you just, look at me and go,
Mom, I wish you could be Santa's little helper and shut your damn cake hole.
You're a good title to do that too. If you've got a mock draft, put it in the comments. Starting this Friday at 5 Eastern Standard Time, after our ESPN live stream, which you can find right here on YouTube, we will be doing a mullet mailbag of all of your questions. To be doing about 2 minutes per show per team. So get your questions in about the Vikings. We'll rapid fire those. If you think I talk quickly now, wait till I have 30 seconds on the clock to answer a question, and you will, by the end of it, see smoke coming out of my ears. But really looking forward to that. And this is all ahead of every pick live right here from this YouTube channel of the 2022 NFL Draft, live from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Subscribe to the channel so you can get all of our team-by-team content here through the rest of the Draftmas season. And, of course, join us for all of our live content, 3 o'clock every weekday afternoon, 5 o'clock for the happy hours, and, for the entire NFL Draft.
All of it. Undrafted free agents. Can't wait to be live, just real-time breaking down undrafted free agents.
We always come to you from the Ingles studio. Ingles Supermarkets, low prices, love the savings. I'm Tank Spencer. He's Jeremy Greene, and we will see you next time.